Welcome to the very first edition of Science and Society News. Well, science and society are kind of all linked together now because we have people who are not listening to scientists. And how is that affecting all of us? Well, let's take a look at one particular loud person who doesn't necessarily like to follow the rules or listen to anyone. Well, that would be Mr. Joe Rogan. Recently, he had a sold-out show in Vancouver, Canada, but he can't get into Canada because he's not vaccinated. This comes to us from The Hill, and the author is Brooke Migden. So here's basically the story at a glance. Joe Rogan's sold-out Vancouver show has been canceled after the podcast host on a recent episode of The Joe Rogan Experience speculated that he likely would be denied entry into Canada because he is not vaccinated against COVID-19. Rogan said it doesn't make any sense for him to get vaccinated because he has natural immunity from a prior COVID-19 diagnosis in August. Rogan's show has been rescheduled for October 24th, 2022. So let's talk a bit about why this is crap. So what I would like to talk about is, why is it that Joe Rogan is wrong? Well, first of all, he's not educated at all in this, and he's perpetuating a lot of harmful information. How do I know this? Because I'm a scientist and I listen to other scientists where this is their expertise. That aside, I'm going to show you exactly where you can find this type of information. Number one, yes, Joe Rogan has had COVID-19 previously. However, just because you've had COVID-19 before doesn't mean you're going to get it again. In fact, if you get the vaccine, there is a reduced risk of reinfection if you've had the vaccination versus if you're unvaccinated. In fact, you're 2.34 times more likely to get COVID-19 again if you haven't been vaccinated. Being unvaccinated was associated with 2.34 times the odds of reinfection compared with being fully vaccinated. Okay, this was published back in August 2021. It's still holding pretty true. This comes to us from the CDC, who are experts in this field. All right, well, let's talk about how exactly does this work? What are antibodies? Why don't I have antibodies? Well, essentially, we have to talk a bit about what causes these antibodies to happen. All right, so you have immunity that's generated from the vaccines, as well as immunity generated from being infected by COVID-19. All right, well, being vaccinated elicits a stronger immune response from your body than the virus itself. So if you're infected with the virus, lots of different things could happen. Number one, your body is fighting off a freaking virus. So it's using a lot of energy to actually make antibodies while it's fighting off a terrible virus. This uses up a lot of energy and resources. So a lot of protein's not going to be shifted so much towards making antibodies while it's trying to rebuild cells that are being destroyed by the virus. So you got two different things hitting you. This is why people stay sick for quite a long time while their body's trying to build up antibodies towards this virus. Now, if you're vaccinated, your body's not fighting off illness. Yeah, you might have some symptoms that kind of feel like a cold. You might get fever, you might get some chills, you might get sweaty, but that doesn't last very long. And those symptoms that you're experiencing from vaccination is your body responding to those proteins that are being made. And how this vaccine works is it tricks your cells into making those viral proteins. And I'm going to get to that, why that's important here in a second. But your body generates a stronger immune response to the vaccine more so than the virus. And it's not using up all of these resources trying to fight this virus as well. So here, this is from the NIH director's blog, And it gets into details. If you want to read through this, what happens is COVID-19 vaccine, it covers a spectrum of lots of different variants because of the way that the virus enters into the cell. And for that reason, it's going to make antibodies that's going to hit several different types. This is why we're seeing vaccines be effective towards different variants and different strains of the virus. Well, let's talk a little bit about how that sort of thing works. Here's a picture here. Just happened to pull this up on the internet. We got our SARS-CoV-2, which is our COVID-19 virus. And it has on the outside of it, if you notice, these little bitty little red things on the outside. What the heck is that? These little bitty red things, those are kind of like keys. This is what the virus uses to enter into your cells. It's kind of like a key to a house, right? So what happens is these keys can fit into these little receptors here on your cells. Now, what makes SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, so bad is that these little receptors here that the virus has a key to, this appears on pretty much every cell in your body. This is why we're seeing heart failure, organ failure, like multiple organ failure. We're seeing brain damage. We're seeing people have issues with their stomachs, kidneys, all kinds of issues, is because this virus can infect just about every cell in your body. So if you're fighting off an infection of COVID-19 and you don't already have antibodies, you're in for a heck of a ride, depending on how much of this virus you breathed in to begin with. Now, what your antibodies do, they're kind of like gum on a key. So what happens is if you already have antibodies, these antibodies will attach to these different keys on the virus and keep it from entering into your cell. Well, notice how many keys this thing has. Look at all those keys. It could hit on this side. It could hit on this side. This is why we can still see breakthrough infections. If you have a particularly transmissible strain like Omicron, it's managing to evade and navigate through. So you'll have some antibodies attached to it, but there's still sections that can attach to your human cell, right? So what happens then, if it's able to do that, then it can enter into your cell, despite all of the other hullabaloo. Here's kind of what that might look like. Now, this is from Nature. See, I'm telling you guys, I'm using stuff other than Joe Rogan. All right, actual science things from papers and stuff. Here's another pretty picture. So you can have a virus here. Here's the COVID-19 virus. And we've got our little gum that's sticking to the sides of this virus, covering up those keys. Well, sometimes you can have one stick and still get infected. That's what's going on here. It can still get in your house sometimes. So this would be like an example of, oh, I already have antibodies. I've been infected before. But you don't have enough. This is why we get booster shots. This is why we get vaccinated. So we have a lot to start out with so we don't get infected. Now, what happens when it enters into your cells? That's when it can mutate, folks. That's why we're seeing all these variants. So when it mutates, latest one, 46 mutations, right? I think it's 46. How did that happen, guys? Well, it entered into cells. And once it enters into cells, it hijacks the cell's network and all of the stuff in it to make copies of RNA and make copies of itself. Well, the thing with RNA is there's no check. There's no spell check on RNA, right? So you might go through DNA in your cell has like a spell check. It goes back through and makes certain it copied it correctly. Error checking. Messenger RNA doesn't have that, guys. Eek. And since it doesn't have that, it's a severe problem. And so you end up with a high rate of mutation. But it can't do this unless it's in your cells. So where are we seeing mutations? Unvaccinated people. Yeah, a vaccinated person could have a mutation happen, probably does. But most of the time, it's not going to do anything Mutations kind of work like a slot machine, right? So think of COVID-19 as a little old lady who's got a full bucket of nickels and is sitting there trying to hit the jackpot, right? Those nickels are access to cells in your body. If you're vaccinated, you might have maybe 15 nickels. Not likely to hit the jackpot with a mutation. But if you're unvaccinated, even if you've had COVID-19 before, you don't have enough gum to lock up those keys on that virus, you're going to have almost unlimited nickels. And it's pretty much unlimited nickels if you have a large number of people who are unvaccinated. Unlimited nickels, guys. That's what we're dealing with. Slot machine, unlimited nickels. That's popping in on us. So, the moral of the story is Joe Rogan's stupid. He's not just harmlessly stupid. He's incredibly stupid. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. He has no idea what he's talking about. Yes, we're going to have other variants of COVID-19. But you know what? If you get vaccinated and you get your booster shots when you're supposed to, you might get sick, but you're going to already have enough antibodies to gum up all them keys on them viruses, and they're not going to enter your host cell or your house cells. And that's what it's going to be. That's what it comes down to. But there's always hope, guys. Please get vaccinated. Share this video. I'll try to make these as many as I can. I intend on keeping them short so you can share them with your family and friends. And you can find me on Twitter, ScientistMel. Like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. And I will see you next time. Stay safe, everyone.